What's going on? Drive time on a Thursday afternoon, 10 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. How do you like 72 degrees and mostly sunny on this October Thursday afternoon here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah? Beautiful day, beautiful weekend ahead as well. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That young man is Porter Larson behind the glass. How about a game day for Utah Hockey Club, huh? They're in Strong Island, taking on the New York Islanders back east. They'll be at Madison Square Garden on Saturday to take on the Rangers. The Utah Jazz also in action tonight with a little preseason NBA hoops. They're in Dallas to take on the Mavericks. We have playoff baseball with the Yankees and the Royals. I don't want to say anything about the Mets right now. I'm not going to get Porter too excited this early in the show, but the New York Metropolitans deserve a little credit. Best record in Major League Baseball since June 1st. And best run differential in Major League Baseball since June 1st. They might be, you know what? I'm not going to say it. I won't do it. Not going to do it. Not right now. But the Mets on the backs of their superstar, Francisco Lindor, a grand slam sends them to for a chance to win the pennant. Do they still call it that? Winning the pennant? I don't know. The Mets march on, though. So baseball playoffs, man, every fall I'm reminded of just how awesome baseball can be and how badly I hope that the Millers and their partners are able to land a baseball team here in our market. College football for the local side of things will get rolling tomorrow with Utah down in Tempe to take on Arizona State for an 8:30 kick. Prior to that, it's UNLV up in Logan taking on the reeling Utah State Aggies, who cannot stop a nosebleed right now. And Vegas is a good team, even though they lost their starting quarterback to an NIL dispute earlier this season. BYU, by the way, side note, happy birthday to one Kalani Sitake. 49 years old today, Kalani is, and BYU will welcome in Arizona for a 2 o'clock Mountain Time kick. Fox Big Noon kickoff will be there. Urban Meyer, who's one of his favorite pastimes while he was here was needling the very sensitive at times fan base down south, and they did not handle it well because that's kind of their MO. So how will they greet Urban? Will he be offered swig and a cougar tail, or will a flavored soda and a frosted donut be thrown at him? We'll have to wait and see. But big games for the local teams this week. Massive weekend ahead in college football. We're high speed ahead. And side note, there are meetings going on today and tomorrow in Nashville. We'll tell you about those coming up in a bit, that if you're a college football fan, you want to be paying attention to. But at some point, we probably shouldn't wait, 6 or 7 weeks to get great brand matchups week in and week out. We have the Red River Rivalry, the 120th edition of that at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Texas is the number one team in the country. Oklahoma has beat the number one team in the country 7 times. That's third most in all of college football, but they've never beaten their rival, the Texas Longhorns, when Texas has been ranked number one. So see if Oklahoma can make that interesting. Texas is a massive favorite. Penn State is in Southern California, the Coliseum, to take on USC. Penn State's a 4-point favorite. If USC loses that, they're 3-3 and 1-3 in Big Ten play, but they are an underdog. A lot of the eyes of the college football world will be in Eugene at Autzen Stadium. Top 3 matchup, don't get many of those in college football. It's going to be Ohio State, the Ohio State University. They're going to be taking on the Oregon Ducks. Ohio State's getting 3 points right now. That over-under is a healthy 54.5. The Magnolia Bowl down in Baton Rouge, Tiger Stadium, is where we're going to see Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, take on LSU. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite. And then really intrigued to see what happens down in Folsom Field, Boulder, Colorado, where K-State's a 3.5-point favorite over Colorado. If the Buffs get that win, we may need to start talking about them a little differently now, potentially. So the NFL weekend ahead for Week 6 begins tonight at Lumen Field in Seattle, where the 2-3 San Francisco 49ers take on the 3-2 Seahawks. San Fran 0-2 on the road. Seattle's 2-1 at home. Who would have thought these two teams would be in this space? Brock Purdy has had a bad year. A lot of people wondering if he really is the guy that can lead. They have a Super Bowl caliber roster. Do they have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback is the question. The Jets have demoted Nat Hackett. They should just fire him. But Nat Hackett has been demoted. Todd Downey will call plays on offense. Todd's been their passing coordinator. He was an offensive coordinator in Tennessee and also for the Raiders. So a lot of pro football news kind of spilling in. RSL with another weekend off. They'll take on Vancouver coming up next week. Before the MLS playoffs start, RSL will be hosting a home playoff match. Excited for that. Black Desert Championship caught some of the coverage on Golf Channel. Joel Damon of Netflix fame hit a pretty bad, it looked like a hybrid on a par 5, sliced it. Had some very colorful language that was caught on a hot mic. And got a little loose. He was a little upset about that slice today. We're going to talk a little golf on the program today. So jam-packed on a Thursday afternoon. Utah Hockey Club tonight in action. Jazz in action tonight. Utah football tomorrow. BYU football on Saturday. My goodness, a lot going on. Baseball, playoffs, NFL, a little bit of everything on this Thursday. We'll start things off with the reigning Utah Broadcaster of the Year, Andrea Urban from Fox 13, will be live in studio today. Chris Kamrani, who finally released his piece on Trevor Riley, is going to stop by on a Thursday. We'll do college football with CK. We're going to check in live at the Black Desert Championship with Paul Pugmire. Smitty's going to be live in studio for a little bit. We'll do a little sports court. Got a lot to do on a Thursday. Andrea Urban, Chris Kamrani, Paul Pugmire, Richard Smith, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. All right, man. I don't want to say it because I don't want to put the idea in your mind, but there's a world that exists that the New York Metropolitans are much better than most people have given them credit for. I'll just caution you, in years past when they've had great teams, this time of year, they just, you know the deal. They don't get it done. But where are you at with your Mets?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, and I think the Mets have always, at least recent memory, been capable of this. That's the frustrating part. They have the highest payroll in the National League. They have the roster more times than not to do it. It's almost painfully similar to the Cowboys, where you have a really good roster, you have this good team, and then for reasons that are organizational, personnel, it all falls apart, right? You think of the Mets in 2016, whenever they lost to the Royals, you had the best pitching staff in the league. You had the best home run hitters in the league, including guys winning the home run derby and the like. But in the playoffs, it all fell apart. So, yes, I'm stoked. They're moving on, advance and survive another day, and in this case, into the NLCS. But Spence, I'm going to very much remain calm and realistic about my Mets.
That's the way to do it.
I think they're good. I think they have potential.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
again, history is telling me to at least pump the brakes a little bit.
Cowboys, Mets, and Knicks. What is wrong with you? All you like are teams that are big brands that spend money and don't win rings. What's the deal? That's really weird.
Just to be clear, there's some rings in there.
Yeah, before my dad was born, let alone you. You haven't been alive for any of those rings.
The Cowboys, but you're right.
Were you born?
I was a literal baby.
All right, well, you can take that.
I was still getting my pants changed. So.
I just feel bad that there are middle schoolers that have never seen the Yankees win a World Series. So we need to get that done.
There are also middle schoolers who have never seen Cam Rising play a football game.
All right.
I have to
unnecessary shot.
Well, I have to break up a little funny joke segment here for some breaking news, potentially.
Well, we'll do that during opening tip. So there is breaking news. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit. Our first guest will be Andrea Urban. But before Andrea stops by, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Standard Restaurant Supply, your one-stop shop for all your tailgate needs, either online or in their very convenient Central Salt Lake location. On a Thursday, it is time now for your opening tip. Believe it or not, folks, it looks like the starting quarterback for Utah football tomorrow night against Arizona State will be wearing number 7, and his name is Cam Rising. Brett McMurphy is reporting And Brett at times gets a little loose, but he's very well connected and plugged in. According to the Action Network's Brett McMurphy, his tweet says Utah quarterback Cam Rising will start Friday at Arizona State. Sources told the Action Network Rising has not played since September the 7th versus Baylor. When he injured the ring finger on his throwing hand, requiring stitches, Rising has missed Utah's last 3 games. Now, when we last said goodnight yesterday, the line was doing funky things, which led to a lot of people, including us, to pontificate on the possibility that once again, Cam Rising would be on the sidelines and Isaac Wilson would be under center. When we started the show yesterday at 2 o'clock on the dot, because we're on time with our clock, everybody knows that, Utah was a 6.5-point favorite. When I started the segment at 3:30, so 90 minutes after we started the show, Utah had seen a 2.5-point swing in the direction of Arizona State. The line had settled Utah -4. Well, as of today, as of right now, the spread is Utah -5.5, so it's back up almost to that 6. So according to the line that is rising and also the Brett McMurphy report, Cam Rising should be under center tomorrow night for the Utes. So that's your good news on a Friday, and hopefully he can stay healthy. You can kind of lose me with the conversation about whether or not he can learn how to play differently, whether or not you can rewire a competitor's brain to be a little bit more safe, as discretion, the better form of valor. That's not who he is, and I don't think you're going to change that. I hope that he can at least be a little smarter, a little more careful, I should say, about some of the decisions he makes. It's okay to live to see another down. It's okay to throw it out of bounds. It's okay to slide. But 7 years in college football, 4 years high school football, this has always been who Cameron Rising is. And I just don't know that you can change it. But of course, and I think the hope, and Coach Witt always talks about this whenever Cam is brought up, and we saw this pretty instantly a few years back when Cam took over for Charlie Brewer, and instantly it looked like the team was rallying around him in a way that they weren't for the prior quarterback. There is something about Cameron that seems to lift the entire team to a different level. I don't know if it's his leadership. I don't know if it's just his potential, but you can see it, and we've all seen it. Every time he's under center, it's not just a better spot at the quarterback position. We see even the defense playing better, the O-line blocking better, running backs hitting holes, wide receivers running routes. It's not that they don't do that when he's not under center, but that Arizona game last Saturday, it was an uninspired effort. It just was, and that's not what we're typically accustomed to seeing from a Kyle Whittingham coach team. They didn't look prepared. They didn't look ready. They got beat in the trenches, and they got got by a team that went home and laid an egg. And now Arizona's in Provo. I don't know how good Arizona is. A very confusing team to me. Obviously, Fafita McMillan, the 1-2 punch quarterback wide receiver, is elite, one of the best in all college football. But they took it to Utah. And I don't know what it would have looked like if Cam was under center. But, of course, you would get improved play from the quarterback spot. But the rest of the group, in addition to just, upping your the performance from one spot, albeit the most important spot in all of football, it's not just that. It's the effect he has on his teammates. And it's tangible, and it's obvious, and it's undeniable. So, obviously, everything is still on the table for the Utes with only one conference loss. As the Big 12 manifests itself as college football unfolds over the course of a number of different weeks, it's becoming pretty obvious that more than one, more than two, multiple teams in the CFP will get access with multiple losses, and not just one or two, maybe even more than that. I mean, who are you confident right now in saying, is good in the Big 12? Like Big 12 landscape, who are you confident right now saying is good? I don't know, man. Do you think Texas Tech is good? They're clean in conference. They're 3-0. I mean, I think BYU's good. Their best win was just a comedy of errors from the other side on K-State. Between the 20s, they got gashed. They were outgained by over 100 yards. They won the turnover battle. They had insane special teams play. How good is BYU? I don't know. We'll see what happens with Arizona on Saturday. I think Iowa State's good. I think they've shown they're good. They go on the road to get potentially the best non-con win in the Big 12 over their rival Iowa. Colorado has plenty of questions left. We'll see if they can answer some of those questions as far as the physicality of their football team coming up against K-State in Boulder tomorrow night. I do think K-State's good. At the start of the season, I thought it was going to be Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State stinks. What about that? But if you're a Utah fan, well, it's been a depressing couple of weeks. News today, Cameron Rising back under center, according to Brett McMurphy, hopefully put some wind in your sails. All right, coming up on the other side, we are going to catch up with Andrea Urban. She is the reigning sportscaster of the year. She joins us from Fox 13. We'll bring in Chris Comrani for some college football. We'll bring in Paul Pugmire for some Black Desert Championship. Do a little jazz with Richard Smith, bring in Sport Court, and we'll go from there. A lot to do on a busy Thursday, and it's great to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Maybe a first for this radio program, but let me explain. All right, little Spice Girls on a Thursday, which, by the way, nothing wrong with that. But our next guest live in studio, the reigning Utah sports broadcaster of the year. Her first concert was the Spice Girls, Andrea Urban from Fox 13. So how old were you when you saw the Spice Girls?
Oh, my gosh. I was 4 years old, and to be honest, I remember it all. I remember sweating at Tinley Park in Chicago. It was an outdoor, and my mom was holding me up on the seats so I could see every detail. And when we were pulling into the parking area, I was, peace, spice up your life outside the window.
Even at the age of 4?
Oh, yeah. And that energy has carried me into my career because now I talk for a living.
Yes, you do.
And it seems to work.
And you do it really well. Porter, your first concert. You told me once upon a time. Who was your first concert?
Oh, man. I'm going to say it probably.
Do you not remember?
I'm fairly certain it's Tesla. My dad was a big Tesla fan.
Ah, okay.
But it also could have been one of a few. That summer was a busy concert.
Beach Boys for me. I was 11 years old, and my father took me because he was a big fan. And this was like Brian Wilson had kind of lost his mind. So they were touring without Brian Wilson. They were touring without a couple of their big main acts. So in order to get the audience's attention, they ran out like 12 scantily clad women in bikinis.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I'm 11 years old on the front row. My dad's covering my eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was my first concert experience. So we got that out of the way.
Yeah, we did.
Andrew,
spice up your life.
Thanks for coming in. It's such a fun time of year right now. There's so many things to talk about. But we were discussing opening night for the Utah Hockey Club, and I thought, like, front of house was awesome. Chris Barney, Jim Olsen, whoever, and obviously the Smiths, but they asked their staff to do a lot, and they did it. And I think they deserve a ton of credit. Give me your impressions opening night for the Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an in-arena host for the Utah Jazz, I am, a part of Seg Media in some capacity. And so I've seen everybody kind of juggle this. I hosted the company summit this summer.
Nice.
And that's so funny because I'm like, hello, I'm the part-time host, but thanks for having me here. But no, that they know that I can do a good job, and I appreciate that. So I was able to they announced that Barney was going to take on both roles and so on and so forth. And Cassie has handled it so well over there. Caroline Klein, they are just been a well-oiled machine. And even with the season opener, they did a blue carpet, and they were like, we're going to make room for you and ESPN on the blue carpet. And it's just like, it seemed like all the pieces have really come together, even though maybe we were drowning for a second there. 6 months. Yeah. 6 months. We welcomed the team here in April, and we not only have an arena that works. Yes, views are obstructed. You should get in there and see a game because views are definitely. It's funny to see people just bobbing and weaving and dodging to see the puck, but we did it. And they did it. Because it's just like I've been a part of interviewing these players.
Yeah.
And I actually asked the players at practice this week, I'm like, has there been anything that surprised you at all at this point? I mean anything. And they were like, no, because Ryan sat down with us the moment that he came to Scottsdale in April and said, tell me everything that you need. Because the things that Ryan thinks were important, they didn't think that were important, the players. And then the players are like, we think that this is important. And Ryan's like, I would have never known.
Yeah.
And so that open feedback has allowed these players to be successful and kind of get settled in Utah and make this place their home.
Yeah, we had Gary Bettman on the show the week after the news broke. And I had spoken with Gary a few months prior too, and he had said there's no plan for expansion. Like, we're not expanding. The NHL is not expanding anytime soon. And so after that conversation, I was kind of bummed. I'm like, I guess we won't get hockey. And then boom, a couple months later, like, to your point, the way this all went down and the speed at which that the Smith Group and their employees operated to get this done, it's not hyperbolic to say it's never been done in pro hockey. Gary on the station said the first conversation he had with Ryan was in March.
Wow.
And it's October, and they had a hockey game downtown. I don't think folks understand what sort of effort that is. You referenced Barney. We've scheduled lunch like 6 times. Day of, he's like, dude, I got to pivot. I'm like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
Get everything done. But also, Andrea, the team is fun. They're good. They're young.
They won.
They came out on fire, right?
Came out on fire, and Dylan Gunther is such a stud, 21-year-old. They obviously just invested in him by giving him was an 8-year contract.
8 years, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, $57 million. He's funny, too, because he's still a kid. I mean, they're all kids. And a beauty of doing this job as a 30-year-old. And the truth is I've come up over the last 10 years, just in my career, you're kind of proving yourself.
Yeah.
But now that you get to be kind of this made a name for yourself, reporter, it's really cool to build these new relationships with athletes at this stage of my career.
For sure.
I feel more solid and confident, and they can feel that. And then it leads to them just kind of letting their guard down a little bit and making for a better interview. And so I've had some really awesome moments with Dylan Gunther and Sean Dursey and Liam O'Brien, everybody's favorite. Liam O'Brien, Spicy Tuna, he actually has a power button tattooed on his wrist. And I saw that in the locker room, and I was like, is that a power button on your wrist? And he's like, yeah, we just wanted to put something else there. And I said, so do you press it before the game and like power up like Dragon Ball Z? And he was like, no, I've never done that, but I might have to now. So now every time I see Liam, we're both going,
Nice.
power up.
Yeah.
And like, that's so cool that I'm able to, I don't know, be the professional with these people, but also build these relationships with these hockey players that are feeling the love, because what I'm being told is that they couldn't even get one TV station to come up to them in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was like pulling teeth to get media out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I have a photo I can show you guys. The media was pummeling, Dylan, just surrounding Dylan Gunther of probably like 30 media members. It was just insane, and they deserve all of this.
100%. And you referenced some of the impeded views. I just keep encouraging the community, like, be patient. This thing took 5 months, and they got it done.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that the tickets cost what they cost when you can't see the entire action, but over time it will settle in.
Absolutely.
And I've got to say, I was skeptical about how that building would present itself for hockey. And I intentionally got there about an hour early. I did a TV hit with your competitor. I will not say who, because that's rude. And then I just did a bunch of laps around the concourse and checked out the ice, and everything looked really good. Like, they were able to get some additional seats in there, right, to accommodate some folk. And over time, I think it'll settle in. But here's my question for you. Do you think, because I was talking to some guys over at RSL about this, our first Real Salt Lake match back in 2005, Rice-Eccles Stadium, about 28,000 people showed up. It was bonkers. It was a lot like Tuesday night.
Wow.
Now, RSL has an undeniable niche here, right? And they've sold more tickets this year than they ever have. And hopefully they'll set a point record.
That makes me happy.
If they can get a win against Vancouver. But, 28,000, a ton of momentum. And then it subsided and RSL settled in. When the hockey club settles in, what do you think it looks like here?
I think fans are all in. Actually, I noticed, so they did like a chugging the beer cam at the hockey game, and nobody expected that. And now, are you asking from a fan standpoint, or are you asking from a player standpoint?
Either one, whatever way you want to take it.
So I did. Jordan Clarkson tweeted and was like, "Can we get more fans chugging beers at our games?" like the Jazz players were like, "Wait, hockey fans are a little bit different."
Yeah, they are.
And Barney actually said that majority of the season ticket holders for this hockey club are not Jazz season ticket holders.
Right.
So we are now bringing in different parts of Utah that maybe have never even attended something at the Delta Center before, and now are because they grew up hockey people. So I think it's gonna just grow from here. And with the young talent on this team, and I've just gotten to cover and work with these guys a lot, they are really just all in. And I have a lot of faith in what Bill Armstrong is doing, the general manager over there. He is very clear and concise on what he wants and what he wants from the guys, and it just seems like there's no, I don't know, like coach speak where it's like everything's good. It's like, well, no, here's where we're lacking and here's what we're doing well. And he's like, we put ourselves in a great position. So fans, if listening right now, I think you should feel excited about this team, because to get their first ever win over a talented young Chicago Blackhawks, future's bright.
Playoffs this year, you think? Can we get greedy? Can we get greedy?
I don't want to say that.
Okay.
I don't want to say it for either them or the Jazz.
I know. Well, we'll get to the Jazz, and I can promise you we won't be talking playoffs with the Jazz, but it might be by design. All right, let's move over now. Breaking news: Brett McMurphy about 20 minutes ago tweeted out that he's been told Cameron Rising will start tomorrow night for Utah football against Arizona State. So you know the deal, Andrea.
Wow.
I would imagine you have the same experience I do. Wherever I go, whoever I talk to, it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? What's up with Cam? Everybody wants to know what's up with Cam.
Everybody.
So he's missed 3 games, but they've stayed afloat. This conference is nuts. 1 loss will get you in the CFP. 2 might as well. But what's your reaction that Cam will start tomorrow night in Tempe?
Yeah, you know what? I'm ready for that. I'm excited about that. I've never seen one guy's absence from a field make an insane difference.
Yeah.
It's like the team is like, what do we do now that our leader isn't here? And Isaac's handled it well. Like, it's not Isaac that's the problem. Isaac's young. He needed those live reps. Utah football with Cam Rising under center is a different beast. And we all know it. I've actually never really, that might have been the worst I've seen Utah play this last week. And other than maybe in the Vegas Bowl when I was there this past December, I was like, what's going on? But that's the same feeling that I felt. It's just so crazy that one guy like Cam Rising can take such control. But you know what? I'm glad he healed up. From my understanding, and I don't know the full report, but like, it was more than just a dislocated finger. Like there was swelling and there was cuts and he tried. Apparently he was supposed to start the last game, but last minute they said, you know what? He's calling this off. And they give Cam that power to say, I don't feel good enough because they trust him. So looks like now the bye week came at the right time. I saw him at UFC 307 as well. Him and Brant Keithy were sitting cage side. I was like, I'm actually surprised that he came out with all the controversy of just over, is Cam okay, or what they're saying about Cam.
I'm glad he did.
Me
Get out
too.
of the house, man.
Me too.
Yeah.
Live a little and be the man. And people are still going to, in person, nobody's going to say anything to you.
Of course. The internet is where cowards go to feel brave, but I do feel like he has taken some unnecessary heat. He's been hurt. When he's healthy, he'll play. Like, that's the deal. But I do feel like he's been let down by some of the grown-ups in the room that have decided to be a little bit cloak and dagger, ambiguous. So, I get Kyle's point. He thinks it's a competitive advantage, and Coach Witt's one job is to win football games. It's not to tell us who's playing quarterback.
Yeah.
But I just
they
think,
dance around it.
Yeah, I just think if you handle it a little bit more, if you're more transparent, more direct, more upfront, and I do think, Andrea, the day is coming where everybody will have to report. I just feel like the heat Cam has taken is as a result of the grown-ups kind of making decisions that I don't necessarily agree with.
Well, and what I love about Cam Rising, though, is that he has a thick skin. Like, Cam's the last person to take this personally or get offended by this in any means. And that's the beauty of it is that, like, the fans can say what they want to say, but Cam is still, sea rising set. Like, he's still the bad moon rising, and he carries that energy with him in everything that he does. And even over the summer, I went to his, like, football camp that he did for kids, and I'm just like, how are you, man? Like, it's got to be crazy. Like, you've been here for so long. You obviously didn't plan for that. And he just was like, yeah, I'm glad to be here and great to do this. And you can tell from the energy. It's not like he's just putting on an act. You can tell through just human communication that he is confident and glad to be here. And Utah football will get back in the win column with Cam Rising.
I think a lot of that is his maturity, right? 25 years old, 7 years in college football. At some point, and you know the deal, you're a public personality. If you want to do this job, part of the job description is taking a lot of crap from people that are brave online. That's
Eat,
just
sleep,
the deal.
and breathe.
That's just the deal, right?
Yeah.
And the sooner you can accept that and get over it, the better off you'll be in the industry. The more you're checking your mentions for, please tell me I'm good at this, affirmation. It's the wrong way to approach it. And I wonder how Cam would have felt if he's 18, 19, 20 like Isaac, as opposed to being a mature 25-year-old.
Totally. Well, Isaac was in tears after the Arizona game. One of my coworkers was like, was he? And I said, look at him. He was choking during that post-game press conference. And I don't know if someone yelled at him or if he was just being hard on himself or either way just because of what the performance just happened.
He got his head kicked in,
You saw the anger from Mekhi Bernard, but you saw heartbreak from Isaac Wilson because he wanted to do nothing more but keep the team afloat while Cam was gone.
Right.
And he's handled it. I mean, he really did. They came back against Utah State. We've seen good moments in this team. The sky is not falling.
Right.
And now if Cam Rising is truly healthy and he's not just going to force himself to do so, if Cam can air the ball out, oh, man, let's go.
Yeah, excited for it. And hopefully this puts some wind back in the sails of Ute fans because from my vantage point, it's been kind of a depressing couple of weeks.
It has. Yeah, I stopped by the tailgate a couple times just to one, join Porter and also say hi to fans and stuff. And everyone's like, I don't know, man. And I'm just like, y'all, this is.
You get 6 home games. You better have a good time.
Yeah, like enjoy yourself. And also it'll be who knows when we'll have another team like a Cam Rising or like a Brant Keithy or, I mean, even just on the defensive side, what we're seeing from those guys, like it's just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right. Is there a chance the best team in the state's about 40 miles that way? About 40 miles
that's
down
where I'm
south?
headed this weekend.
Oh, are you going to go down to the BYU game?
Yeah,
Fox Big Noon kickoff.
First time I'm going there actually all
cool.
season.
Yeah.
Because it just hasn't worked out. Season opener, they were home, but I was here.
You need a helicopter to get in and out of Provo.
Yeah, and then Utah State played Utah, so I was up in Logan.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't been down to Provo yet this season, and I'm excited. Jake Retzlaff, the only Jewish quarterback in all of college football.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
In all of college football.
Did you ever? No, you're a young.
Playing right now.
Yeah, you're a young. Did you ever see the movie Airplane?
No.
Old school.
No, but I'll watch it. I'm a big.
It's funny, and there's this one bit where they, somebody's looking for something to read, and it's like, how about you read this pamphlet on the greatest Jewish athletes of all time, and it's like 2 pages, as opposed. So
Seriously.
anyway, yeah.
No, it's the truth. And my thing is we mentioned the Jewish thing, and it's like, yay, the BY Jew. That's what everyone calls him. If you didn't know, he wears it so proudly.
Sure
there was
he
an
does.
awesome story on CBS with him and how he's also been, leaning into the LDS side of things too. But Jake, I'm looking forward to seeing more from Jake because in these last couple wins, especially, well, I know the Baylor one, but they kind of let them back in the Baylor one. But shooting back to Kansas State, that was all, special teams and defense. Yeah, Jake had 2 passing TDs. That's amazing. Like, that's great. But I want to see Jake just like really step up at QB this weekend, and I think he can because they kind of saw what Arizona was able to do against Utah. So now BYU can learn from that, and we can see more from Jake. I just want to see more from Jake because right now I'm seeing a lot of the team score, and I want to see Jake take control.
Yeah, to your point, between the 20s against K-State, they were outgained by about 130 yards.
Right.
But Aaron Roderick called kill shots. They got touchdowns in the red zone.
Yep.
That Parker Kingston.
Oh, my gosh. Play of the year.
I think Rubel said he ran 140 yards on the broadcast to get that touchdown.
Gosh.
That was a cool moment.
And then he dropped the ball. It bounced. He's like, well, let me grab that and let me just whoop, whoop. I watched it live. So I was in Iowa for Utah Hockey Club's first ever preseason game, and we're going pretty hard on that. So I was in Iowa at a restaurant watching it live on my phone going, oh my gosh. And Parker Kingston threw up after it.
Yeah.
I mean, what a guy, though, and great run there. And even the defense picked up the fumble and returned it for a touchdown. So there's so much from BYU right now that's working, but I actually do want to see more from the offense.
So BYU, Arizona, then home against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State stinks, which has caught me off guard. Then they're on the road at UCF, another team a lot of questions about. But those are the 3 games prior to Utah on November the 9th. Is there a chance that BYU rolls into the Utah game undefeated?
Right now I do, but I also think, and I know that their record doesn't show this, but I think Oklahoma State is probably pissed off right now.
I would hope
with
so.
just how everybody's coming to Stillwater and embarrass them, and they keep losing pretty dramatically. Especially, I mean, it's just the loss to West Virginia, to Kansas State. It just keeps going, and they need to. I'm wondering if they're gonna kind of really go head to head with BYU and maybe give so yes, I do believe that there's a chance, but if I'm going to bring out anyone on that list right now that maybe will put BYU in its like little place for a moment there, it might be OK State because they're pissed.
Your point's well taken. And for Utah, they're at Arizona State tomorrow night, and then it's home against TCU, who just lost to Houston. Houston didn't even look like a serious football team.
Yeah, well,
and then Utah goes to Houston. Those are Utah's 3 games before BYU. Andrea, there's a chance if BYU is undefeated on November the 9th and Utah has 1 loss, both teams will be close to, if not in the top 10. It could be the first time in the history of the rivalry we have 2 top 10 teams in state playing. I mean, I get chills thinking about it.
No, me too. And it's a little warm in here, and I'm still getting chills thinking about it because it's just like – they deserve all this. Like, the Holy War needs to be revived. And I know we don't really call it that anymore, but when I hear stories about what it used to be like, and then I came to town in 2019, which was a part of like the Francis Bernard switching to Utah, and then he gets the pick 6, and I was a part of that as a newbie in Utah, and I went, this is crazy. Can we do this more often? And then it stopped, right? I mean, obviously BYU got that win, but it stopped, and I think we need this for Utah and BYU fans. We need it for the state. And we need it for college football because this is a real rivalry that I am down to be a part of.
Did you know anything about it before you moved out here?
To be honest, I didn't know anything about the Pac-12 before I moved out here.
Chicago girl.
I grew up in Big Ten Nation, and I think I lived in this bubble that Big Ten is what made the world go round, and it did for me in my world. And then
it's a good place to grow up.
Right, and then I moved out to here, and I found out what the Big Sky was and what the Mountain West was, and these are things I had no idea. I actually knew Utah State before I knew either of the other schools because Utah State has come into Michigan State where I went to college and played several times and either won or bamboozled us and got really dang close. So yeah.
All right, couple minutes left. Let's do a little jazz. You're going to be down as
in-arena host.
Good for you. Good for you. You're very good at that.
Thank you.
So
the energy from that Spice Girl concert, I'm telling you.
Oh yes, for sure. It's catapulted you to this great career that you have today. You know, I never thought they'd trade Markkanen. I just didn't. Over the course of getting rid of Gobert and Mitchell, Bogdanovich, Conley, the whole teardown.
Right.
Lowry's like the one thing you have where you're like, you know that that's real, and you know that it's special, and you know that it can help you build for the future. I understood the other side of it. You know, I'm one that believes if you're going to break it down to the studs and build it back up. But they bring Lowry back. They have 7 players on the roster, 22 or under.
Yes.
And it seems like, based off what Zanuck said during his media availability, be prepared to see the kids play. What are you most excited about as the Jazz get ready to tip?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think people forget about the other guys on the roster. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. Like, these guys aren't brand new on the block. So, yeah, we're the focus, they've made it clear. The emphasis is focusing and teaching the young guys and allowing them to grow because 6 under 20 years old, which is insane. And it's going to be a mess. But my thing is we know this, so let's just be happy for the wins that we do get. Let's enjoy the Jordan Clarkson flop, like not flop. I'm saying like moving around, just absolutely the nimble, twisting, turning kind of guy that he is. Let's enjoy those flame on shots, the athleticism in Lauri Markkanen. That's what I'm excited for, is to almost see the young guys come into their own, because Keontae George has done so already, and we will see that even more because he's embracing his role at point, because they really don't have a true point, and Keontae's had to adjust to that. But overall, like John Collins and Jordan Clarkson during media day were going off about how they're already seeing so much good from Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier, and then Jordan Clarkson's favorite player, he said, coming up is Kyle Filipowski.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and how Flip has got some good moves there. So and how he seems to be really strong. And I'm excited to see also Walker Kessler kind of redeem himself out of a sophomore slump. I mean, you can call it that, but it's
a big year for him.
It's a big year for all of these guys, because it's time for you to step up and come into your own. And this is the NBA.
For sure. Andrea, where can people find your work, either on social or on Fox 13?
Yeah, Fox 13 is where you can find me on the television. On Instagram, I'm Andrea Urban with an underscore at the end, because someone with Andrea Urban just has my account, or not my account, but has my name. And then, Andrea Urban TV on Twitter. So.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. You're welcome to join us anytime, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay. The reigning sports broadcaster of the year. We have a celebrity in the studio, Andrea Urban from Fox 13. All right, before we catch a break, I want to tell you about Advanced Window Products. Nate Orchard, mayor of Sac Lake City, and Jake Weber, just great people. When you choose a business, you should choose the people that run the business. You should choose these people because they're local. The sales and the installation are all in-house, no middleman markups. They build, install, and guarantee for life. So here's the deal. Lifetime warranties transferable to the next homeowner. If you need windows now, call today. But if you think you might need windows in a few months, you might be selling your home, call today as well, because you can take advantage of the fall football special this week. You get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's right, $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. Advanced Window Products, you can beat the rush and order today from their factory to your front door in 8 weeks or less. Give them a call at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Chris Kamrani is our guest, coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right. We are starting the 3 o'clock hour today. Typically a Friday guest, but on a Thursday afternoon, apparently a No Doubt fan, I believe. Chris Kamrani on a Thursday. This is No Doubt, yeah? Christopher?
I'm here.
Oh, there. So No Doubt, is that the first concert that you ever attended?
It is not. I just saw your text, but it is one of the first CDs I ever bought, Tragic Kingdom.
Okay.
And it holds a special place in my heart for a multitude of reasons. Maybe chief among them, like the fact that Gwen Stefani used to be really cool. And now it's like she's on that NBC singing show and she's married to that country guy. Like, I don't want to say fall from grace because I respect the hustle. I'm sure she's made a boatload of money, but if you're taking me back to 10-year-old me back in the mid 90s wanting to buy Tragic Kingdom and then imagining her, giving the stamp of approval on a network television show, I think that's what we used to call the definition of selling out. I don't know if the kids know about our slang from back in the day, but that's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and it is a fall from grace. And by the way, your description of what she's doing is exactly the way I would put it. I don't know the name of the show, and I don't know the name of the dude either.
I think it's The Voice.
The Voice. I guarantee, Porter, who's that country bro that Gwen Stefani married?
Blake Shelton.
I knew it.
There it is.
I knew Porter would know. Porter comes in handy when it comes to the country music knowledge.
Are they still married?
I don't know. Effort that, will you? Do a little research. All right. So who was the first? What was the first concert that you ever attended in your life, CK?
Oh wow, I don't even remember, man. Like I think there were ones that I went to when I was young, and I don't remember. One of the first ones that really sticks out in my mind was a James Taylor concert. Yeah, at USANA. That was one of the ones when you got to go by yourself with your buddies. It was one of those things. But yeah, then just a lot of pop punk, early 2000s BS stuff that is probably way over your head. But one of my first concerts, I think in my top 5, was Dave Matthews at USANA. I think that was 03 or 04. So I used to be cool.
Yeah, I see what you just did there. You insulted me by saying it would be over my head, and then you brought up Dave to alleviate the insult. That's wordsmith. That's mastering the wordsmith, CK. Well done.
Well, I appreciate that. I aim to serve.
All right. I've been waiting for the piece. Actually, no. We should start with the breaking news. Then let's get to the Trevor Riley stuff. So Brett McMurphy, Action Network, and Brett at times has reported things that, how shall we say, have not necessarily been entirely accurate in the moment, but he is reporting that Cameron Rising will be under center tomorrow night for the Utes against Arizona State. What's your reaction, Chris?
My reaction is it seems to be on par with the timeline for the type of injury that Cam suffered a month ago. He hurt his fingers. He needed a few weeks off. The trajectory of having the bye week slammed in between the Arizona loss and this visit to Arizona State makes sense that now he's been able to heal and be ready to go. I guess I was not operating under the assumption of this groundswell community of Utah fans that were ready to turn the page on the Cam Rising era and just quote unquote focus on the future with Isaac Wilson. But, Utah, if Cam is under center and he looks like the player that we know him to be, I think Utah is back on track, so to speak, to becoming, that contender that everybody thought they could be in the Big 12 this year.
So it has been interesting to follow, and I did speak to somebody up on campus who basically said there is a general feel, not even close to a consensus, but there's kind of some momentum in the direction of just give Isaac the job and let's roll with the kid if Cam's not going to be healthy. Is there a point where that actually makes sense? I mean, this is kind of a moot point because Cam is playing, but at what point do you feel like maybe you should give your young freshman reps with the ones and take the pressure off of him week in and week out and let him know that the job is his? Is there a conversation in this world that something like that does make sense, even though we know Cam's playing tomorrow night?
Well, I know I'm not on staff and I'm not privy to the important conversations, but if you're asking me, I would say no. You're talking about a guy who is arguably the most decorated quarterback in the history of the program, from an accomplishment standpoint. Even if Cam was injured up until the BYU game in November or after, whatever, like as long as he's healing and on your roster, he is your guy. He gives you the best chance to win. I don't care what any of the tinfoil hat dudes say. I don't want to say I understand that, like, they're frustrated, because again, I'm going to keep going back to what I've been saying on your show for weeks now. It's like football player gets hurt, football player has to wait to come back. I don't understand where along the lines we managed to take a left turn down this very dark, ominous dirt road of conspiracy theories that, like, Utah's better off without Cam Rising. They're not. End of sentence. Hard period.
So here's what I'd say. I agree with you as it pertains to the venom towards Cam. Like, that makes no sense to me. He's hurt. When he's healthy, he'll play. But I understand the frustration, the sentiment in the community about being frustrated with the messaging and frustrated with kind of the same deal this year that they dealt with a year ago. And so when you hear them say things like, we're not doing this for gamesmanship, he's hurt, it appears that was the case in this instance, but it was not the case a year ago, Chris.
Correct.
Week in and week out, they were playing this game that was clearly full of lies. They were lying every single week, because Cam comes on Bill's show, does the mea culpa. He was like emotional, felt bad for the kid. Your piece on Cam, I've sent people to 1,000,000 times, because you could tell through your writing and channeling his emotion that it was really hard for him. So I think the frustration that I understand, like I said, I don't get the stuff that's going in the direction of Cameron. Like, leave the kid alone, man. He's hurt. He's going to play when he's ready. But the portion of the community that kind of has the feeling like, here we go again, I get that frustration.
I get that, but I also think it is also a byproduct of so many things kind of coming together. It is an amalgamation of Utah joining a conference that its fan base was immediately convinced that it would dominate because of the roster that it has and the history of the program, and the fact that we've expanded the college football playoff to 12 teams. I think Utah fans, Spence, were just largely convinced that a playoff berth was going to happen this year if Cam stayed healthy. I think the fact that Cam got hurt in basically 3 quarters for him into the season, that triggered a little bit of PTSD in the fan base, which I guess is understandable. But again, like, Cam Rising gives you the best chance to win no matter what. Isaac Wilson has stepped in and been okay, but he's, at the end of the day, he's an 18-year-old true freshman learning a very complex offense on the fly, and he's done an admirable job. But if Cam is still on your roster and is working to get back to becoming your starting quarterback again, just take off the tinfoil hat and just relax and just watch the show. But again, I can't drive this home enough. You cannot be upset that a football player gets hurt, no matter what kind of injury it is. You can be upset about the messaging, but sooner or later, you just got to kind of grin and bear it.
So, bottom line, he's playing tomorrow, all right? And so, Brett McMurphy is reporting that Cam is playing tomorrow. And you referenced earlier, Ute fans might be upset because with a healthy Cam, CFP was thought to be the destination, but it still could be, Chris. I mean, all is not lost. When you look at the landscape of not just the Big 12, but all of college football, sometimes Vandy beats Bama. And Vandy's the only school in the SEC where you actually have to sign a piece of paper if you want to go to school. Like, they actually have standards. They get it done. Things happen in college football. I think it's safe to say there's going to be multiple teams in the CFP that have multiple losses, not just one, maybe even 2 or 3.
This is the first time in a long time that I can remember there being no elite college football teams in the country. Last year, I mean, I think if you're talking about the top 4 last year compared to this year, I think those teams would smoke the top 4 teams this year. And, obviously this is always just kind of a cyclical thing with rosters being diluted to graduation and, the NFL draft and so on and so forth. But it is interesting how the first year we have the 12-team playoff. I agree with you. I think there will be no team that goes unscathed throughout the regular season and conference championship weekend. which isn't a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. I think college football, of maybe all the sports we have in this country, is so obsessed with this idea of perfection because it's been ingrained in our heads that the only way you have a chance to play for something worth a damn in December and January or early February is you have to be unblemished to get to that point. And that's such an unfortunate, flawed point of view. Thank goodness we now have an expanded playoff where there will be a team that could have 3 losses at hoist and national championship. And you know what? That's awesome, because guess what? There are teams in the NCAA tournament that lose 6 to 7 games and win a national championship. Like, I don't understand why in college basketball we're bending over backwards to be stoked about George Mason or Butler or whomever the Cinderella makes to the Final Four. We want them to win. But in college football, it's like, oh, you're 9-3 and not 13-0. Nah, I don't have time for you.
No, that's a good point. NFL teams with 4, 5, 6 losses win the Super Bowl. You just have to win the games that matter. You have to win your conference games and be healthy and playing top shelf come tournament time. It's no different in college football. So I'll just ask you straight up, you still believe Utah is squarely in the mix for that Big 12 championship and maybe going to the CFP?
If Cam is healthy.
Right.
But again, like I said last week, I think Utah finds itself in the Pac-12 again. I mean, you can make an argument that 7 or 8 teams can win this conference, and we're already in mid-October. So obviously that will be whittled down in the coming weeks as teams play each other and more, programs mount losses and others mount wins. But if Cam is healthy, yeah, it's all there for Utah to play for. But if not, I don't think so.
Will we see a calmer, more tame Cameron Rising tomorrow night? I continue to be skeptical that, we've got, 7 years of data in college and a couple of years in high school of tape, and this is always who he's been, always. From the day he set foot on the football field, is there a way that we maybe see that some of the messaging has seeped into the old cranium and he's a little safer tomorrow night?
I'll believe it when I see it. But again, I also think that we have to look at this injury not as a freak injury, but a very odd injury that you rarely see happen in sports. Like, honestly, like the fact that your starting quarterback kind of did this awkward, Andy Larson free throw shot outside, trying to get rid of the ball right before he steps out of bounds and is shoved into the Gatorade station and hurts his fingers. I think like that just doesn't happen that often. So, I'll believe it when I see it, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Listen, it's what led Utah to 2 Pac-12 titles. If that's who Cam is, that's who Cam is, and the coaching staff and the fans have to roll with it. Bottom line.
Let me just say one thing here. I do need to give Andy some respect, because if I was as bad as Andy is at basketball, I would never go to that Jazz training camp. And my man shows up every year. I got to give him – maybe that's a me problem. Maybe that's my ego talking. But every year there's tape that comes out of Andy playing hoops, and it's such a bad look, but my man still shows up. So credit there.
Well, I give him – I mean, I'm the same. I'm not good at it either. I will say, Andy's got that, 9th man in the rotation, very aggressive rebounder energy, and he does not really turn the motor off, which I respect. But listen, man, it's fun. You can lean into who you are and in real life, and I think Andy does that. So I give our guy all the props in the world for enjoying his job and understanding where he stands in the local media basketball landscape of the world.
I believe you tweeted me a video of you throwing a very Magic Johnson-like pass over your head in some pickup basketball game like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks before COVID shut down. We were in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine for a big athletic symposium, and we had a game at the local YMCA. And listen, man, every once in a while a blind squirrel finds a nut, and listen, every once in a while I can pull out some passes, but I can't shoot worth a damn. So that's all I got.
It was a good look. By the way, how's your soccer team? Are you still playing?
Oh yeah, no, we're good, man. We're good. We are always the oldest team in our co-ed league by far, and we hold our own against the youngs, and I think it really makes them mad. But I think the average age on our team is like 36, 37, and we're going up against kids who are sometimes as young as current high school soccer players. And maybe they're taking it easy on us, but at the end of the day, the youngs need to be taught a lesson in how to play organizational shape first soccer. and that's for JP because I know he's listening.
So are we talking CK midfield pulling the strings? Where do they put you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. Okay, look
I,
at you. Okay.
I think I would say I'm a box to box guy
Wow.
right now.
Okay.
But I'm also, if I'm needed to, I'll stand between the pipes, baby. And it is not a fun life. So anybody in any sport who's willing to play goalie, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, it is a very, very hard position. It is an unforgiving position. But every once in a while, you run into a fun one. You get on a heater, and there's nothing. The high of having a good game and goal is nothing like on the field because you're actually keeping the opposition out of the back of the net.
So a midfielder, but willing to play goal. So you're the Brian Kamler of your indoor soccer team.
Exactly.
Nice.
We love Cam.
Yeah. You ever hear his Mickey Mouse impression?
That's not.
It's quite good. It's quite good.
Okay.
Anyway, back to football. Non sequitur there. Just kind of a side tangent. Do you think that Utah will need more from Isaac Wilson before the season's over?
Ooh, that's a tough question. If Cam comes back tomorrow, I'm going to say no. If Cam does not come back tomorrow, then the obvious answer is yes. But I just want to approach this subplot to the Utah football season with the understanding that its best, most important player will be able to ride off into the sunset because he's a guy that deserves it. And again, I think it is so odd. I'm not saying even close, I'm not even saying even close to a majority of the fan base, but it is odd to me that a portion of the fan base has decided to throw up their arms and be willing to walk away, so to speak, from a player that has, led them to more premier wins as a program than any other player in the history of the program. I mean, and we're talking about quarterbacks that are pretty good. So that's my answer. If Cam is under center tomorrow night, I'm going to say he's going to be able to play for the rest of the season.
So I think Arizona might be the most confusing team in the Big 12, and the Big 12 has a ton of very confusing teams. And BYU has answered every question that has been asked of them so far. But I think coming up on Saturday, there's going to be some more questions to be asked. I am very, very anxious to see the Urban Meyer reception down in Provo as Fox Big Noon Kickoff will be there. Urban, he certainly, and you were around back then, he very much enjoyed needling BYU fans. Obviously, team down south would not even say their name. He will be there with Fox. That's kind of a fun little side note. But in the K-State game, box to box, 20-yard line to 20-yard line, they were outgained by 130 yards. A ton of great bounces. Credit them for scoring touchdowns in the red zone when they had the opportunity after some fortuitous bounces and turnovers created. Obviously, that punt return was insane. I do think they're good, but this could be a very, very close game. BYU's a 4-point favorite. What do you think happens Saturday down in Provo?
Well, I'll just say I agree with you that Arizona is a confusing team, but if Arizona comes to Utah and BYU in a 3-week span and wins both at Rice Eccles and LaVell Edwards Stadium, that's a hell of a feat. That's a very difficult thing to do. But I wasn't able to watch the Texas Tech game, but it looked like, oddly enough, I know Taj Boyd is a very good player, but it looked like Texas Tech just decided to run it down their throats the entire night. And that's something that Utah was unable to do. And you're talking about a Utah team that traditionally wants to try to do that. So I don't know which team is going to show up. I will say that LaVell Edwards Stadium, when it's rocking, and it will be rocking, is a very tough place to play. And I'm going to go back to the same thing I always say with BYU is if Jake Retzloff can do away with these very untimely turnovers, I think they have a shot, man. I mean, I don't think Arizona is head and shoulders better than BYU from a roster construction standpoint. I think BYU, as currently constituted, and I'm always going to ask you because I don't pay attention, but I should. Do you know if the running backs are going to be back this week? Are they going to be available for BYU?
I think the
LJ Martin.
I think the Rapati kid was available last week against Baylor.
Okay.
But I don't think LJ Martin played, so I'm not sure. You know what's lost in all the Cam stuff is that Kalani's done the very same thing with his running backs.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, he will not say anything about the health of L.J. Martin or Hinckley Rapati. So I think the Rapati kid was available last week, but I'm not sure as it pertains to what we'll see coming up on Saturday against Arizona.
Um, yeah, I think BYU will win a close game.
All right.
I'm going with them to go 6-0.
So very interesting game coming up in Boulder. And you are the guy here locally that has spent time on multiple occasions down in Boulder covering Colorado football. And we'll end with the Trevor stuff. But you've been able to, see what the Dion effect actually looks and feels like. And K-State is a 3.5-point favorite. If Colorado wins that game Saturday night, primetime ESPN, what will the conversation sound like next week surrounding the Buffs?
That they're very much in contention to win the Big 12, as they should be. I think if K-State loses this game, I don't want to say it eliminates them either, but they'll be looking at 2 losses through the first 7 weeks of the season. I think that's something that not a lot of people saw coming, especially that BYU loss. But listen, man, Colorado has 2 of the best players in the country. You can make an argument that they have the best pro QB prospect in Shedeur Sanders, and they easily have the most dynamic player in college football with Travis Hunter. So if they're able to beat K-State, that will be a huge feat. I think K-State is a much better version of UCF, meaning that they are a run-first team, and they have a very talented young quarterback in Avery Johnson who wants to be able to run it down your throat, and they have a bunch of good running backs. So it's Folsom Field when it's rocking is also a hard place to play. I'm very sad that that's a late kick because I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay up because I'm old. But if Colorado wins that game, then we are officially on. CU is on the list to potentially win the Big 12 launch.
You haven't given Leo any Diet Coke yet. That's a trick you can use to keep him up for Saturday night.
Diet Coke, huh? Yeah, we don't have Diet Coke in this house, but I guess maybe I can give him some like black tea. I wonder if that would do the same trick, or I don't know what the caffeine average is compared to Diet Coke. But Diet Coke is a very, Utah response, which, I don't know. I don't think you're a Diet Coke guy. Are you?
I'm not a soda guy. I've seen family members feed their young children Diet Coke so they can stay up.
Well, maybe I'll have to run to the Maverick down the street to get some.
If I opened up the CK fridge, what would I see?
Oh, man. Do you want me to open it up right now?
Yeah, open it up and give me a visual. What's in your fridge right now?
Lots of leftovers, some juice for the boy, some homemade muffins for the boy, some Spindrift, lots of fruit, some eggs, some tofu, some bread,
I'm sure you have tofu.
Some aging yogurt, and some expired orange juice.
Okay. All right. That's a solid, healthy fridge. Moving on. All right. You spent some time in Hawaii recently on the Big Island with our guy, Trevor Riley, who hopped on this radio show and did the Trevor Riley thing, where he talked about his international travels, trying to tap into maybe the Saudi Public Investment Fund for NIL purposes at the University of Colorado. That's the short version. You wrote about the long version. What stood out most to you?
Oh, man. How long is your program?
Go ahead. Go at it. we go until 6 o'clock live, as you know, Chris.
Well, I guess I would say, do you want me to break down the experience from like a day-to-day point of view, or do you want me to explain the ethos and ultimate takeaway of the story? Because those are also 2 very different things that might take up a lot of the time.
Let's start with day-to-day.
Okay, so my flight out of Salt Lake was delayed like 4 hours to Honolulu. So immediately I'm like, bleep word. I'm like, I'm already behind the 8 ball a little bit. Eventually I get to the Big Island at like 9 p.m. local, and Trevor calls and drops me this pin, and it takes me up the mountain towards Hawaii National Park where all the volcanoes are. I turn down this dirt road, no other car in sight, very ominous. I take a hard right, and I stumble upon a very cool music setup where a bunch of old hippies are just jamming out, having a jam sesh on a Thursday night. And immediately I'm like, okay, I know I'm in Hawaii. Here I am, like time to lean in. So that was night 1. The next day, Trevor and I hike down to Mount Kilauea, spent most of the day, in the interview process. We went down to this black sand beach where he likes to go swim. We went and watched the Arizona K-State game, which by now is a month old, but we're sitting there eating lunch and watching Dylan Edwards, who used to play for Colorado and who Trevor claims was trying to get paid more NIL money, watching him return a punt against Arizona as K-State throttled them. So that was just kind of a very kind of fortuitous happening for the story, just because that's a direct effect of what Trevor was, claiming he was trying to do at Colorado. And then Saturday, we ended up going feral pig hunting. There are feral pigs in Hawaii that basically ruin the grass and the terrain of private property and public property. Trevor is friends with some folks who own a mini golf course and a disc golf course, and the hogs have just tore it up. And by now, Spence is like, "Are you kidding me?" He's still talking about this stuff, but that's what happened, man. So we met up with a couple of guys that Trevor got to know, and you just walk around the very thick brush and try to scare out these giant, very scary, aggressive feral hogs. We only found a couple. We did not dispatch of any, but there were some shenanigans that took place, and it was a very boots on the ground journalistic experience. Let's just say that.
So I'm going to ask you the question a lot of people ask me whenever they hear me interview Trevor. They ask, like, is this dude for real? And I always say he very much is. What now that you've spent time with him, what are your impressions of the type of dude Trevor is?
Well, I guess my answer to that would be that in an existence and a profession and a sport that kind of demands uniformity, Trevor doesn't really, abide by that. He has always been the type of guy that marches to the beat of his own drum. He was like that at Utah. He was like that in the NFL. He was like that on your radio show for, a multitude of years. It is a breath of fresh air for somebody like me who just wants there to be something real. Yeah, there's a tractor on the TV, dude. Yeah, sorry about that. You're looking to connect with somebody on a real level when it comes to stuff like this. And, obviously I had to press Trevor on a bunch of questions, and he understood. I mean, there's a reason why he said fly out there, because he knew I wasn't flying across the ocean to just hang out and enjoy a couple days off. Like there were, things that I needed to press Trevor on, and he had answers, and the story is very long and it's complex, but he is a person that I think, just from a human interest point of view, is a breath of fresh air, in that you so often deal with people who are told to be robotic and not say a lot. Trevor will say a lot, but he can say a lot by saying a little as well, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. All right. Before I set you loose, let's do a little soccer here, because of course, that's in your wheelhouse. And our guy 3 Fits, I think, is a little nervous about what the playoffs are going to bring. They're going to see a pretty motivated Vancouver team coming up next week who needs points. They're in the playoffs, but they can catch the team in front of them. I think there is a scenario where RSL can move up, but fact of the matter is they have locked in a top 4 spot. They will have a home playoff match. They have a chance to set a record for points in a regular season, and Jason Kreis had 5 really elite years here, so that's not nothing. As we head into the home stretch, one more regular season game into the playoffs, where are you at with our local soccer club?
Well, they could sure do with a guy named Brian Vera, but they will not have him available. And I don't want to pile on the dude, but I think this is the second year in a row where he's lost his mind come down the stretch of the season.
You can't do that, Chris. You can't do that.
Yeah, well, and I think in Houston he had that red card last year. I don't know if that was in the playoffs or not, but he is one of your most important players, and the fact that they're going to be without him for that regular season finale and the first round game does not bode well for them. I don't want to say they're hitting their stride, but listen, they have to figure out who their starting 11 is, because I think you can make an argument that Anderson Julio has been the better forward. I think he's been the better forward for them the last couple of months, as Chicho has battled his way through injuries and back from suspension. So if they draw Houston in the first round, man, I think if you've been paying attention to the history between these two teams in recent years, I think it's easy to pick Houston just because they have their number. But it is huge for them that they've locked up a home game, because you don't want to go to Houston and not have home field advantage against a team that has your number.
Is there a dog dying in the background? What's going on?
Well, it's just my son.
Oh. Wow,
Yep.
Sorry about that. That's rude. All right, buddy. We'll let you get back to dad duty. Thanks for the time, man. Great work on the piece.
I appreciate you.
All right, Chris Kamrani. His latest is a great piece on his 4-day vacation to Hawaii to interview Trevor Riley after Trevor joined our show to outline his long and winding road to try to get the Saudis to invest in college football. It's a sentence that's actually real. You can go find it on Chris's Twitter page. I sent it out on mine. Chris is at Chris Kamrani. Mine is just at Spence Checketts. All right, I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. Clearwater Distilling is the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. Great spirits, tasting room, and the nicest crew around. Limited release Wednesday whiskey batch number 2, a mix of their bourbon and rye whiskeys. Scandalous, Renee, try their vodka, which is now in most state liquor stores. The football season is kicked off. Clearwater is the official spirits provider for our VIP ESPN tailgate that we have at every home game. Do yourself a favor, check out the tailgate or schedule a tour and tasting in their Victorian tasting room. Makes a great date night or a fun activity anytime. Authentic, vintage, prohibition, prescriptions, and decor. Try their Scandalous. It's a no sugar, no additives, great tasting grown-up version of cinnamon whiskey. Ultra premium spirits, the Renee, the Armagnac, the Josephine. Try the Lorenz. You can buy their spirits in state liquor stores, online, or take a trip to their beautiful distillery. Grab some booze, some local cigars, and immerse yourself in the Clearwater distilling culture. More information can be found at clearwaterdistilling.com, and they're located at 564 West, 700 South in Pleasant Grove. All right, coming up next, we're going to go down to St. George. Not literally, but we're going to check in on the Black Desert Championship with Paul Pugmire. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Uncrustables are such an elite snack, dude. They just are. We have a little vending situation in the cantina. Threw $10 in it a couple weeks ago. Just a little hungry on a Thursday. Realized I had like $7. Grab me an Uncrustable. That's an elite snack. Do not at me, bro. That's an elite snack.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, Spencer. The Uncrustable, let's be clear, peanut butter jelly is an elite snack.
Oof.
But the Uncrustable, the way they prepare it for you with a little smash, no crust, frozen, really good.
I went grocery shopping yesterday, saw a box of them. I'm like, don't do it, dude, because you'll eat 4 before you go to bed tonight. Anyway, moving on. Time for a little golf. Black Desert Championship, the PGA Tour is back in Utah. Our next guest, Paul Pugmire. Paul, paint us a picture, man. What's it like down there?
It is stunningly beautiful. It is a perfect St. George fall day, not a breath of wind. It's not too hot. It is crystal blue in the sky. Absolutely stunning.
Okay, so who is, I've got the leaderboard pulled up, but who so far has caught your eye? Who's figuring out the track early on?
Streelman seems to be figuring it out, and the one who has my attention is Mike Weir. He's up there bouncing around the top 10. Things are moving. There's still a lot of players on the course, but Weir went out, made some birdies, and posted the number. Good on him.
What's the feedback? Not just today, but since you've been down there, talking to players, talking to folks from the PGA Tour, talking to folks from Black Desert. What's the feedback early on so far, Paul?
Summed up in one simple word, and that's wow. These guys have a lot of experience with desert golf, of course, because of the Arizona tournaments, in particular, the waste management at TPC Scottsdale. And so when you talk desert golf with these guys, their mind goes to Scottsdale. This is different. It's got these layers of colors with the black desert and the red rock, and it's a different vista, it's a different look. Plus, from their perspective, we're at elevation. Even though you go down in elevation from Salt Lake, you're going up in elevation from the coast. And PGA Tour is largely a coastal tour. It's largely a sea level tour. So it's a different look and a different feel for these guys. But universally, the response is wow.
Speaking of wow, you referenced it. Mike Weir, Canada's Mike Weir, let's be clear, 6 under through 9 holes. And the leader in the clubhouse, Matt McCarthy, 9 under, and they're through. So six under through 9? My goodness, what about Mike's game seems to fit well early on with his course?
Well, in the presser yesterday, and first of all, I do want to say he lives in Park City. He's a Utah guy.
All right, Paul. Then tell him to put the American flag by his name when he's playing golf.
Okay, fair enough. But he said that for him, his task this week would be to stay in his head, in his game, and to play his game, his shots, while he's walking around with these 20-something flat bellies that are bombing it. And he said that he felt like he was in a good space to do that, and that for him, when his wedges were on, his game was on. And he said, I'm feeling good about my wedges. Well, I guess so.
There are 8 golfers total with Utah ties outside of Mike. How the rest of the local guys faring so far?
In this moment, I am watching Jadon Blake prepare to hit his second shot on the gettable par 4 14th that we talked about last week. And Jadon is playing now his 500th start on the PGA Tour, which is a huge accomplishment no matter what. And the fact that this is happening in his hometown, literally up the road from his childhood neighborhood, it's a stunning, just overwhelming event, one of the great events in Utah golf history. And so Jadon just hit his second shot into 14 to about 10 feet, and it's really fun to watch him play. And he's got a big crowd out here following him. The 2 big names among the Utah contingent, in addition, of course, to Mike Weir, would be Zach Blair and Patrick Fishburne, because they're regular tour members. They are here because they play the PGA Tour, and they went out to paired together today, and then therefore for tomorrow as well. And that's kind of fun to see them play together.
What are the galleries like? How crowded is it down there?
Great question. It's actually, galleries are kind of light today on purpose. This is a brand new facility, a brand new tournament, and so they really limited Thursday sales so that they could get their oars in the water and figure out how to do it. There will be a lot more tomorrow. They're sold out for the rest of the week, so there will be more tomorrow and more on the weekend.
Are you aware of this mini controversy that's being talked about as a result of some either clerical errors or straight up cheating with the Monday qualifying?
Yeah, generally, I don't know the details on it. I'm concerned about what I'm seeing so far. What's your take when you watch this?
I don't know enough about it, which is why I asked you. I was told that there are some requirements that need to be met in order to just play in the Monday qualifiers, and more than a handful of guys didn't meet the requirements, signed up anyway, and a couple of them actually qualified, and that's the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, and that is a concern. You can't just show up and play. You can't just go online and sign up on a Monday queue. You've got to have some status. You have to have some demonstration of being qualified, of having paid some dues and shown a skill level in order to get into a Monday queue. Plus, these things are 100% subscribed every time. And so if somebody is in it inappropriately, they're taking a spot from somebody else who has standing to play. It's a concern. Right now, generally the golf community is trying to learn about and find out about what's going on with this. Could be a problem.
So, you joined us last week, and it was kind of funny because 30 seconds after you hung up the phone, you sent the field. You're like, oh, here it is. And so I didn't get a chance to get your reaction. And obviously it's been a week, so it's kind of yesterday's news. But here's how I'll ask it. Okay, give me a few names when you saw the list where golf fans like me would know, like the biggest names that are down there. And then away from the local players, give me some names that golf nerds were excited about seeing.
Well, first of all, some context, and you're asking a really good question. The context is this is the fall series. There's 8 tournaments on the PGA Tour's fall series, and the fall series is designed for players who are outside of the top 50 to give them a chance to play into the top 50, or players who are outside of the top 125 to give them a chance to play into the top 125. So that's the whole purpose of the fall series. So immediately you've got players like Steven Yeager, who is already in the top 50, but for his own reasons, and I don't know what they are, but he decided to come here and play, and you can see his name up in the top 10. He's playing well. But there's a couple of other players who are really interesting. We talked for a brief moment about Cameron Champ last week. He's playing well. And this is Champ has won in Utah, which in part means he's won at elevation. So he's a guy who has figured out how to play his game at elevation, and it's showing because he's doing well. But those are the players that you want to see, is players who are, if there's the ones who are already in the top 50 that chose to come, and then players who are just below who are trying to play their way into the top 50. Now, Patrick Fishburne, a local guy, and I know you said not local guys, but he's in the mid 80s. I think I want to say 80, 83 or something like that. A top 5 week puts him into the top 50. Yeah, it could be a total game changer for him.
So I'll follow up with a question: biggest names, and then some names that folks like you really pumped to see.
Well, I am focusing so hard on the Utah players, but I did note, of course, Kevin Streelman. Kevin is a guy who just made his 300th cut on the PGA Tour. Again, a career accomplishment of high magnitude. I think Harry Hall is really interesting. He's a British guy who has played every step along the way and has done real well. I'm also really interested in Kurt Kitayama, and he's regionally relevant to us. He played his college golf at UNLV, and he's been playing well. He's a former winner on the PGA Tour. And then who doesn't like Joel Damon? Joel Damon, of course, who's got a lot of camera time on Full Swing. He's here this week, and he's top 25 or so. He's playing okay.
So, Kevin Kisner is a name that a lot of people know. He's a broadcaster in addition to a good player, and he's tied for 126, 3 over through 8. What do you make of his struggles?
I'm not surprised, actually. Kiz has not had his game this year throughout the year, and then he took an assignment from Jim Furyk to be an assistant captain for the American squad at the President's Cup, and I know that Kisner was really involved in that, really dedicated himself to it. Sometimes that comes at a cost. Even though, good land, Mike Weir, he's just 2 weeks removed from his captaincy, and there he is at -6. But Kisner hasn't shown much this year. It doesn't surprise me that he's not showing much today.
So I've got the leaderboard in front of me. You referenced Zach Blair, 2 under through 8. Zach is he's not a local, but he lives down there now, and he's only through 8. He's 2 under, so we'll see if he climbs. Tell me about Zach's game and how you think it fits the track down there.
This is a really good course for Zach because it's a course that doesn't require to be a bomber. Plus, Zach has a lot of experience playing at this elevation, call it 2,500 feet. And so, yeah, absolutely, Zach, this is a fit for Zach. Now, one of the things we will see as the week goes on is that the strength of this course is it's really complicated, really thoughtfully made and thought-provoking green complexes. Zach is one of the best there is at figuring out a complicated green complex, whether it's lag putting or short game chipping and pitching, things like that. That's Zach's wheelhouse. I think this fits for Zach. I think this is a course made for Zach, and we should look for him to make some noise.
All right, so let me follow up with this. You referenced this is part of the fall tour and outlined very well why a golfer would be motivated to come play in the tournament. And you'll have to forgive my ignorance. I know this tournament's going to be around for a few years. Is it always going to be at this point in the calendar, or is there a chance that the tournament could be moved to a better spot on the PGA Tour calendar where we might see some of the bigger dogs in St. George?
That is a really good question. Right now, the contract between Black Desert and the PGA Tour is a 4-year contract, which is nothing unusual. Most of them are around 5 years, give or take, and then they re-up them. And even for the events that have been around forever, like, say, Memorial, they still work on 5-year contracts. And so that's very common. But we do know that it will be here for 4 years. It will change its place on the calendar. Most of the contracts give the calendar positioning control to the tour. And so
let's go ahead and let him go. It's all right. Paul was sounded like he just stepped right in the middle of a tornado. A gust of wind down south has taken Paul Pugmire. Hopefully he's safe. Black Desert Championship. The PGA Tour is back in Utah for the first time in 60 years. Henrik Norlander and Matt McCarthy are in the clubhouse at 9 under. They're your leaders. Kevin Streelman, 7 under par. He's also in the clubhouse. But Canada's Mike Weir is 6 under through 9 holes, and that's a tie for 4th right now. But he's got the back 9 to play, so we'll see if Mike can continue to climb up that leaderboard. So I wish I was down there. Day job calls, So excited to watch the rest of this tournament. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Richard Smith is going to join us coming up next. The Jazz are in action tonight. They're taking on the Mavericks. Get back to some college football after that during the 5 o'clock hour. But I do want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action this season. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. For instance, tonight, Thursday Night Football. Brock Purdy, less than 275 passing yards. Kenneth Walker, more than 80 rushing yards. Really easy to do, and if you hit on 2, you can win up to 100 times your money in a single bet. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So go get their free money, try out the app, and see if you like it. It's that simple. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's downloading the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. Smitty joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. This wasn't intentionally about Ute fans and Cam Rising, but I think it kind of works, right? We're doing a thing on the show. Andrea Urban stopped by, and she picked her walk-up song. It was Spice Girls. That was her first concert. Beach Boys, my first concert.
Right.
So this was not an intentional message as a result of the breaking news that Cameron Rising will be under center tomorrow night for the Utes, but the lyrics actually do kind of work.
God only knows, Spencer. And, if I may, Cam Rising is a little bit of a beach boy.
Yeah, he is actually.
Surfer.
My guess is he's probably not a fan of the band, but you never know. He's kind of an old soul. So if you missed it from earlier, this is a Brett McMurphy tweet. And but let me ask you, you're a college football guy. You got the pulse on social media. What's the Brett McMurphy reputation among news-breaking folk in that space?
That's a good question because, as you said, there's been some burns with Brett, but I think anything personnel-wise, right? I've never seen Brett like miss something big in that regard. I think on like some conference stuff, some realignment stuff that they got a little south, but when it comes to his contacts, his sources within programs, they're pretty surefire. They're pretty close. So I don't know that I would go out and question a report, especially on a personnel and especially in a situation, Spence, it's been so kind of up and down. You would think that a reporter of that stature and time, he's been doing it for a very long time, would be kind of dialed in on that one.
Yeah, I don't know what the dynamic is with the folks up at the University of Utah as far as which reporters they talk to, and do coaches have a relationship with Pete Thamel or Nicole Auerbach? So the Jazz were always Woj guys. So it'll be interesting to see with Adrian Wojnarowski now taking over the basketball program at his alma mater, how the Jazz decide to go about their news-breaking business. Do they get in bed with Shams? Do they actually give local guys something for once? I have no idea. By the way, not me. I don't give a rip. Talking about the Jazz beat reporters that really could use some news from the Jazz if the Jazz decide to break some things. So the Jazz were always in bed with Woj. He's gone. I don't know if Utah football has another symbiotic relationship that's kind of like that. But somebody talked to Brett McMurphy today. Not sure who it was. And the report from Brett McMurphy that surfaced just about an hour and a half ago or so. Here's the tweet. Utah quarterback Cam Rising will start Friday at Arizona State. Sources told the Action Network. Rising hasn't played since September 7th versus Baylor when he injured the ring finger on his throwing hand, requiring stitches. Rising has missed Utah's last 3 games. So Brett McMurphy is reporting that Cam Rising will be under center for the Utes tomorrow night against Arizona State. So how has that affected the line? When we said goodnight last night, Utah was a 4-point favorite as of 6 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. As we sit here today at 4:06 p.m. on Thursday, Utah is now a 5.5-point favorite. So the news that Cam is playing obviously has moved the line. We'll get back to this coming up in a little bit. But joining me now, goodness gracious, live from the first PGA Tour event in Utah in 60 years down in St. George, Richard Smith. Happy Thursday, Smitty. How's it going down there?
Spence, happy Thursday to you. We are on this worldwide tour that now brings us to the beautiful Black Desert course down in Ivins, Utah. And I'll tell you what, this first day has been amazing. A lot of good golf. A lot of guys shooting low. A couple guys are right now tied at 9 under, including Henrik Norlander and Mike Weir. Birdied 5 of the first 8 holes, so he's off to a good start. And it is hot and sunny here in Utah's Dixie.
Very nice. Well, I'm thrilled you can have that opportunity. I wish I was down there with you, but some of us have day jobs, so we have to work, Smitty. I'm not sure if you can relate to that, but I'm grinding up here.
Spence, a lot of people have been asking for you. Somebody actually mentioned, I don't know if we're going to be able to start the tournament without Spence Checketts on the first tee, wailing on that driver of his with 350 yards, but somehow they managed to get it going without you.
Well, that's their problem. I guess next year maybe I'll get the invite. But Smitty, let's talk a little Jazz. Let's talk a little NBA. As the NBA is now high speed ahead of the regular season and the preseason is upon us. So the Jazz have played a couple of preseason games. They're going to be in Dallas tonight. Just from a front office standpoint, a guy who spent 40 years doing this, What are the points of emphasis during the preseason? What are things you're actually looking for?
Well, with the guys that they've got, obviously they've committed to play all these young guys, so they're going to take a long look at that. For me, one of the things it looks like they're still trying to do is figure out if Keontae George is a point guard for them long term, if he's the guy, or if they need to go on to whoever the next guy would be. So he's going to get a lot of run at the point guard. Of course, they've played Hendricks some meaningful minutes the first couple games, and so they're trying to see. His body has really improved over the summer. He looks a lot better to me. Just watching him these first 2 games in person, he looks fitter. He looks a little bulkier up top. Now it's a matter of whether he can play with the force and also with the athleticism that for the reasons that they drafted him a couple years ago. Other than that, it's going to be interesting to me to see how they deal with their veteran players. I'm not sure with the way they are right now and the way they're set up that having John Collins and Jordan Clarkson on the roster make much sense to them. They're paying both those guys a combined almost $40 million. And I'm not sure if either one of them is going to have much to say in what the Jazz want to do going forward. So that's one thing I would look at would be if anything starts rumbling at all about whether they're trying to move those guys before the season starts or not. I have not heard anything like that. That's just my own thought. But the way they're set up, it just seems like they're really committed to figuring out what they're doing with all the young guys they have on the roster.
So through 2 preseason games, Will Hardy has started Lauri Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and Keontae George. Do you think that's the you think that's the group? You think that's the group we're going to see start the games?
Well, I would think it makes sense to me. I mean, you think of Lauri Markkanen as an older player, but he's right entering his prime. But all the other guys, Sexton, even though he's been in the league 6 years now, he's still a young guy. He came in young, only 25 years old, and those other guys are young guys, right? So they're trying to see if those guys mesh together and can play well together. They're not going to win a ton of games. I don't think they expect to do that, but they've got to find out if those guys can play well together, if they fit, if those pieces go together well, or if they're not, if they're disjointed somehow, they're not playing well. Do we slide a couple other guys in there and see what happens with them? But that's all part of it, Spence. Now, even in the preseason and going into the early part of the regular season, they're not about, so-called winning the games. They're about finding out who can play well together and who fits well together and what guys do we think make sense for us going forward. That's really what the key is at this point in time in the calendar.
So year 3 for Walker Kessler, okay? And year 1, rookie season, he really showed that he's got a lot to like and caught a lot of people off guard. He ended up starting 40 games, shot 72% from the floor, was about 9 points, 8 boards, about 2.3 blocks. Free throw percentage, not great, 51%. But all of his numbers dipped in year 2. Not exponentially. We're talking 8 points. We're talking 7 boards, still at 2 block shots because that's what he's elite at. Field goal percentage down to 65 from 72, but not a big dip. But there was not an improvement, and it was obvious. And there were a lot of things that people were saying down there, and you could tell there were some tense moments between he and his head coach. In year 3, Smitty, it's a big year. It's a big year for most any player that enters this league on a rookie contract. So they're going to want to find out this year whether or not Walker is going to be a fit for them long term. What would you say reasonable expectation should be for Walker Kessler year 3?
Yeah, I agree with you, Spence, 100%. He is a guy who's under the microscope for them because they have to figure out, can he be a complementary piece to what we're trying to do, or is he just not good enough either skill-wise or competitively or in terms of how he approaches the game. For me, he needs to start showing more aggressiveness when he gets the ball. He needs to attack the rim with more force, much like Lauri Markkanen did last year. He really showed that he had really improved in that area for me. He really took the ball hard to the basket. He wasn't afraid of contact. He wasn't afraid of getting fouled. He was able to finish plays at the rim. Kessler, when he gets opportunities, he's not going to be a main guy. He's not a guy they're going to lean on heavily. He's going to be always, in my opinion, a complementary type player. But within that realm, can he do the things that he's skilled enough to do, and can he do that with more aggressiveness and with more force when he gets the opportunities? He needs to make his length and his size around the rim pay off on both ends of the floor. That's what the Jazz are going to be looking for from him, because if he doesn't show that, then they're going to be up for a fourth-year contract extension, or they're going to be looking to figure out how to move him and to move on to whoever the next guy would be. But that's going to be a key element for them going into the early part and into the middle part, I think, of this season, to see how he fits within that role.
So, Patty Mills is certainly a guy that deserves a lot of flowers, as the kids would say, for a great career, an NBA champ, an Olympic stalwart for his home country of Australia, and a guy that has been a true pro wherever he's been. And Will had him in San Antonio when Will was coaching under Greg Popovich. It'd be nice if Patty Mills was 25, but he's not. Talk about the dynamic of bringing in a vet who's won titles. So Isaiah Collier and Keontae George and these young players can kind of understand what it takes to be a professional in pro basketball.
Yeah, and that's exactly why they brought him in. And if you heard his press conference on media day, you would hear him saying all the right things within that framework, that he's here to be a role model, to show guys how to be a professional. We had that way back in the day, Spence, back when you were a little toddler. We had a guy named Karl Malone, who was a young rookie on the roster, and he will always say to this day that one of the things that helped to mold him into the work ethic type of player that he was in his career was because he was around Adrian Dantley his rookie season, and Adrian Dantley showed him what it meant to be a pro on the practice court, in the locker room, in the weight room, in your conditioning, all the stuff that goes into making you a player. Carl always gives AD, the first nod of credit in terms of him learning, this is what I'm going to have to do if I want to be a successful pro. That's what the Jazz front office is hoping that Patty Mills can provide. Come in, show these guys, this is how you do it. This is how you carry yourself. This is what you do when the limelight isn't on. This is how you improve to become a contributing, successful, long-time NBA player. Because, look, Patty Mills did not come in with glorified expectations. He was a good player at St. Mary's, a very good college player. But he came in and fit a good role in San Antonio. He fit in a good role in the other places that he was in his career. And he's just one of those consummate pros that you want to have in your locker room with a lot of young guys. Don't look for him to be a major contributor on the floor and trying to push the Jazz into a next tier type of level competitively. It's more about what he's doing with the guys on the bench, in the locker room, on the road. What do you do? How do you carry yourself to be a successful pro? That's what they're hoping he brings to their group during the course of this season.
So the Jazz were the worst team in the NBA defensively last year. ESPN's BPI prediction has them at 29 this year, for whatever that's worth. I don't even know how they formulate that, but obviously Walker at the rim, if he can take the next step, if he can stay healthy, that's his superpower. His ability to block and change shots, so you like that. But it was a little bit Rudy-ish when Rudy was here, when the perimeter defensive breakdowns were so obvious and so consistent that it doesn't matter who you have back there if you can't guard on the perimeter just a little bit. Do you think – so a lot of questions about Taylor Hendricks. I think there's a lot to like, and he's 20 years old, so there's a marathon in front of him. he's the guy on the roster, maybe Cody Williams as well, but Taylor has the measurables to guard, and nobody can guard Durant. But you get my point. Taylor has the measurables to guard the Durants and the LeBrons and the wings that are big and long, and Taylor showed up to camp this year after putting on about 17 pounds of muscle. Do you think we're going to see the next step from Taylor? Well, both sides of the floor, really, but do you think he could develop into a kind of a defensive-type stopper that can guard a Paul George?
Well, that's what they want to see, and that's going to be what they preach to him is, okay, you've got the size, you've got the athletic ability, you've got the ranginess, you've got the quick twitch to change direction to be able to do those kinds of things. Now, can you take it to the next level where you consistently show the effort to do that? That's what is going to be the next step for him. He's a young guy. He's got very little experience. He's not a finished product by any means. He's just getting out of the gate. But they want to see him take that next step where he shows that he has the competitiveness, the fire in his belly, to want to match up with those guys, to want to play them, to take them on. You don't let them dictate what's going on. You try and dictate to them by the way you approach them defensively, and then when you have the ball in your hands, how you're going to be creative offensively. So the Jazz coaches, the front office, they're going to be looking to him this year in terms of his approach mentally more than anything. How does he approach the game? Is he gliding through the games? Is he trying to be smooth? Is he trying to be an easy guy? Or is he going to show some toughness and to get up on guys and show that grit and fire that you have to be competitive in this league at that position? Because just the guys you named, and there's a long list behind them of guys who play those positions and play that type of game in the NBA, that if you want to have a long career and you want to have a career that makes a statement of some sort, then that's what you have to show on the floor. This year will be an opportunity for him to show how he approaches his job and what he thinks his role should be on the team in terms of how he plays.
All right, one more Jazz question. Then I got a couple of other quick ones for you before I let you get back to watch some golf. And it is about the rotation because, the preseason, most of the stuff you throw it out the window. Certainly wins and losses don't matter, but you do get an insight on who the head coach is thinking about playing. So we already talked about the starting five of Markkanen, Hendricks, Kessler, Sexton, and George. The leading minutes off the bench so far have been Cody Williams, Bryce Sensabaugh. Isaiah Collier played a bunch of minutes against the Breakers. I think Collier got 19 minutes against the Breakers. And we've seen John Collins and Jordan Clarkson, but not as much as we've seen the youngsters. Last game, Kyle Filipowski got 13 minutes. John Collins got 10. So let's expand the rotation a little bit now that we've already talked about the starting five. Off the bench, how do you think it's going to go early on for the Jazz?
Well, again, Spence, I think they're committed to those young guys, so they've got to figure out if it's not Keontae George or, depending on how he's playing at the one, can Collier play the one and play some meaningful minutes there? Because he's a true one. Now the question with him will be, is he good enough to play at the NBA level as a true point guard? That's going to be the question with him coming out of the gate. But he's going to get some opportunities to show that he's a tighter ball handler than he showed at USC. And then he showed in the summer league where he was just as prone to turnovers and sloppy passes as he was to making a good read and making a good find in the offense. The other young guys are similarly going to be judged based on what they can contribute when they come on the floor. They've got to show improvement. They've got to show, more than anything, Spence, I think as a whole group, they've got to show some more toughness and some more grit in terms of how they play the game. Being last defensively, being last in transition defense, being last in ISO, wing defense, That's obviously that's not getting it done. They've got to show improvement. They've got to find guys who want to play and play with some toughness that would keep them on the floor and show that they're willing to do that. And let me tell you, they're in a position where they don't care. It's the old Jerry Sloan axiom. I don't care who does it. I just need somebody to do it. So if it's not you, then you're going to sit down, and I'm going to give the next guy a chance to do it. So that's the position the Jazz are in right now. They don't care who does it. They just need somebody to do it. So the young guys coming in, they're all going to get shots. They're all going to get, spaces of time where they have an opportunity to show. And they've got to live with mistakes, and they've got to live with missed shots and missed opportunities. But they can't live with a lack of aggressiveness and a lack of determination to guard guys. That's really where they have to have some kind of a focus. I don't know if Collins and Clarkson, where they are in their careers, if that's going to be much meaningful to them, really. That's my opinion. I think that those guys, if they're getting minutes, are going to be minutes that they're trying to showcase them to be able to find guys, teams that would be interested in maybe, picking them up and putting them on their roster. But that's I just think that mix doesn't work because it's not going to work winning games, and it's not going to work long term with what you're trying to do. So it's going to be interesting as the season unfolds, just how they use those rotation guys and how they try and figure out who is actually a round peg that can fit in a round hole. And that's what they really are going to be trying to do early on in the season, both the rest of the preseason games and then going into the first month or 6 weeks of the regular season.
All right, Smitty, before I set you loose, since you and I last spoke, the New York Knicks made a pretty big trade. Now, last year, New York was 18th in offense. They were 5th in defense. Tom had Cat in Minnesota, so obviously you had to sign off on this. Hartenstein goes to OKC. Robinson's injured until January. Anunoby and Bridges are elite wing defenders, and Josh Hart's not bad either. But Cat is not known for his defense. I have to wonder how Tom's going to react to that. Like I said, he already had him. I think there's some pretty intoxicating offensive potential. Pick and roll with Brunson and Cat's going to be hard to stop. Minnesota got some depth. They got DiVincenzo, who led the league in threes last year. They got Randall, who's never in my mind a franchise-changing piece, but a solid player. They also get a first-round pick. From the Knicks' point of view, did they make this deal with Boston in mind? And does this put them closer to maybe taking the next step and competing for a conference championship?
Well, I think that this is one of those NBA trades where when you're not involved in it and you're looking at it objectively from 30,000 feet, you really look at it and say, you know what? I think both teams got what they wanted, and both teams improved in how they want to play. The Minnesota got Randall, got a mid-post guy who can really score, who can do things with the ball. That's good for them and what they try to do. They added the other piece with DiVincenzo, who gives them another floor spacer, who's proven to be a very reliable open shooter in the NBA, to balance that out with the Edwards kid, who is really showing that he's now at the superstar level. And then on the Knicks side, they got a bona fide all-star center who can score, who's also a very good high-post passer. Maybe he's not a great defender, but they didn't give up a great defender, to get him. So they didn't really subtract anything from that formula that Tibbs likes to play with defensively. Now, maybe they go down a couple notches in overall team defense, but I think Cat adds more to their offensive weaponry, both with his scoring ability and his passing ability, than he gives up defensively for them and how they play. So I really think it was a win-win deal for both teams, and I think they're both going to be glad in the middle of the season, assuming both those guys are healthy and playing the way they expect them to play, that it's going to help both teams. Smitty,
I appreciate the time, man. Go watch some golf, and we'll chat next week, all right?
All right, Spence. Appreciate you, man.
All right, the great Richard Smith. Before we catch a break, we welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. Fun time out with the Dish Pros yesterday. Stop by 8034 South State Street. But dial 801-424-DISH. You can get all of your football, everything you want. Basketball, Jazz, Utah Hockey Club, college football, you name it, it's there. And there's a new situation unfolding, which makes it somewhat urgent that you call soon. So just call today. And Ryan joins us now, 801-424-DISH. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, we've got the deals and the ability to, hook people up. And guys, this promotions and offers are changing, and you don't want to miss out. And every day we save people so much money. It's my favorite thing to do. And if you're looking at your cable or satellite bill and you're like, wait, what am I paying? Am I not getting what I want? Or maybe there's glitches or problems. Guys, call us up and just let my team work their magic. That's what we do best. Get you the best promotion out there, guaranteed. Have you installed as early as next day. We'll throw in movie channels. We'll throw in multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone, and have you installed and for free. Plus, also throw in dinner at JCW's. And guys, if most customers are like 70 to 110, 120 plus a month savings, guys, that equates into thousands, especially with this offer that we currently have. Call us now. Just let us see what we can do. Ask about our internet services. I've got about a half a dozen different providers right now that we can facilitate you with. Fantastic services, prices from $35 to $50 a month. Plus, I've got one that still has a $200 gift card. This is an awesome service. I've been using it for 2 years now. Call us, 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. More coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. It is Sports Court time. We do it every Thursday, right about now, with our good friends over at Handy and Handy. Garrett riding solo today. Preston's waiting in line for BYU football tickets. He has no time to join us today, so it is Garrett solo. Garrett, how you doing, buddy? Happy Thursday.
Hey, good, Spence. How are you doing? Happy Thursday to you.
I'm well. I appreciate the time. So let's dig into it. Let's get right to it. Australian high school football player here in Utah has filed a suit to play varsity and says the new Utah rule is discriminatory. Help us understand what's going on here.
Yeah, that's right. So this involves, he's a high school senior. He's from Australia. He's a punter and at Juan Diego, and came here last year, and he's played. And Utah High School Activities Association has put in place a rule that prohibits students with F1 visas, which is a student visa. So if you have an F1 visa, you cannot play varsity sports. And the way I read the rule, schools kind of have a choice. Either they've got to, prohibit the student from playing varsity sports, or the team would not be able to play in any postseason playoffs or, any kind of tournaments. And so, it's simply put, he's filed a lawsuit and alleging that this rule is discriminatory and that it discriminates on the basis of his national origin. And so what they're seeking right now, and it was just filed a couple days ago, but it's going to proceed kind of quickly, but they're seeking a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction, basically saying, hey, we're halfway through the football season and we want to get this kid on the field. And we think this rule is discriminatory and it should be, we should shut this down right now so he can take the field. And so they have to show several things to get this a preliminary injunction. They've got to show that he's going to suffer irreparable harm. And basically they're saying, hey, he's a high school senior. This is it. This is his last shot, to play high school varsity athletics. And then they have to show some other things like that they're going to prevail on their equal protection claim. I'm sure the, High School Activities Association, they put this rule in place to prevent schools from potentially recruiting foreign athletes to come play in the place of Utah high school athletes. And so kind of interesting. I know we looked at a similar case a little while ago, Spence, involving Layton Christian Academy. They've got a similar argument. This kid at Juan Diego, he's claimed that, hey, I was not recruited by Juan Diego to come. I came on my own volition. I had several reasons why I wanted to come to Juan Diego, and I'm part of the community now. I've been here a year, and I just want to play. So it's going to have to be heard here soon because the season is well on its way.
Georgia's damn good at football, but they got a lot of players that get themselves in trouble, and this is not a good spot, not a good look for their wide receiver, Colby Young, who has been suspended by the team. He's being charged with battery and assault on an unborn child. Fill us in here, Garrett.
Yeah, and I think the part about it, about an unborn child, is where the charges are, is what got my attention and wanted to look at it. We've done a little segment here a long time about athletes doing bad things, but this is another one. His ex-girlfriend apparently shows up at his apartment at about midnight and wants to, quote unquote, talk about their relationship. And things become heated, and apparently in some form or fashion, there's one report, he grabs her by the arm and drags her out of his apartment. And then the other, which is more significant here, is that he puts his arm around her torso and squeezes her. I think picks her up with, kind of a bear hug, and lifts her up, takes her out of the apartment, and shuts the door. Well, she calls the police, and he ends up being arrested for it. And so, yeah, the charges are assault and battery involving an unborn child. So apparently she's pregnant. And maybe that was part of the conversation they were having, which is, hey, Colby, I'm pregnant, and you need to know this. Oh, also the conversation became heated when she found out he was on the phone with another woman. So there you go. And then we've also found out Kirby Smart has now said that he's indefinitely suspended. His defense lawyer has made a statement and said that Colby didn't make any physical contact with her in any way that could ever be considered a crime. So I think that's going to be the defense, saying, well, yeah, he touched her, but this isn't assault, right? She's in his apartment, came there, wasn't welcome, told her to leave. So, but it looks like he's going to miss the football season.
So I was not aware that the Jim Trotter NFL lawsuit had been settled. I remember when it was filed. I remember listening to the press conference when he asked the question that he claimed cost him his job with the NFL Network. But the space is yours. Tell us how this thing played out.
Yeah, and the question he asked at that press conference to Roger Goodell, and again, Jim Trotter, just for some background, he's a journalist at that time in-house with NFL media. And so at the press conference, he asks his boss, Roger Goodell, he says, hey, how come the league doesn't have more black persons in senior management in the NFL media newsroom? Well, long story short, he ends up losing his job, and he files a lawsuit claiming retaliation and discrimination, basically for that question, for bringing up this issue about the lack of diversity in the NFL media newsroom. And so, yeah, fast forward till today, till we find out, and there has been a settlement reached. And he's announced that, and he's also announced, and I thought this was actually pretty cool. He's announced that he's establishing a scholarship at HBCUs for black journalism students. And so I think it's pretty cool where he's putting his kind of money where his mouth is with his allegations and saying there needs to be more diversity, more black journalists in the newsroom. And I'm going to help make that happen with this settlement.
Final one for today. Am I reading that the NCAA actually won some sort of lawsuit? My goodness, a win for the NCAA. I don't know anything about it, so go ahead and fill us in.
Right, a little bit of a shallow victory, maybe, and I know how you feel, Spence, about amateurism rules in the NCAA, but this one is a little bit of an area we haven't talked about much. This involves Reese Brantmeyer. She's a top tennis player at UNC Chapel Hill, and she played, outside of school, played in a U.S. Open tournament and won about $49,000 in prize money. And under NCAA rules, she's not able to accept that prize money. She can only take up to $10,000 to the extent that it covers her expenses for participating in the tournament. So she had to, she won this money, had to give it up. And so the allegation is saying, well, wait a minute, for all these team sports, the money is flowing, right? The NIL money and everything. But if you're an individual sport athlete, like a tennis player, skier, track and field, right, on, these individual sports, you can't go participate in outside competitions and make prize money. And so she's filed an antitrust lawsuit and wants a preliminary injunction, like we just talked about a second ago, but she's lost her motion for a preliminary injunction. And so her lawsuit is still going to go forward. I think this is a temporary victory for the NCAA. In the moment, she wasn't able to show that there's enough harm, but her underlying antitrust lawsuit, and again, this is for individual sport athletes, is going to go forward.
All right, buddy, before I set you loose, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how can they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
Yeah, for sure. You can call us at 801-264-6677 or our website, handylawutah.com. We'd be happy to help you out with any legal questions you have.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend, and let me get a go Utes, Garrett.
Let's go Utes.
All right, there we go. Check them out. Handy and Handy, great people. Any legal questions, give them a call, and they'll give you some advice. All right, before we catch a break, have you had every single football game at your disposal like I have? Through 7 weeks now of college football and 6 weeks of pro football, I've had every single game. The ones I can't watch live, I put on the DVR. Luckily, the Hopper's a massive DVR, so I've got Ute games on there from like 2018. It's a great time to call now because if you don't call soon, you're going to get a letter that says this is your new cable setup. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to accept it. Choose your destiny. Ready Player One, 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
I like it. Yeah, this merger's in the process of happening. Dish and Direct are going to be merging. And here's the thing is currently we're still operating business as normal, and this will go on for a while. But here, if you are going to be on one or the other provider, you might as well take advantage of the new customer offers. And guys, that's what I'm telling you to do. Dish and DirecTV offer huge credits for new customers, new offers, and you can take them still. So take that offer, take the upgrade, get better equipment. There is tons of upgrades that have happened on both sides, and you get massive credits, some free movie channels, multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone. And here's the big one. Dish has that 2-year promotion, 2-year price guarantee. So it will not affect you at all throughout the whole entire process. So call us up, take advantage of the offers, and get upgraded. Let us throw in dinner at JCW's plus guarantee the very best price. and get you installed so you can watch all the games wherever you go. 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. Thursday Night Football comes your way. Don't forget, we are your home of the NFL in our market. We have the Niners taking on the Seahawks. 5 o'clock hour, all college football. We'll react to the breaking news that Cam Rising will be under center, according to a report from Brett McMurphy tomorrow night against ASU. And then we'll say goodnight about 6 o'clock. So it's a drive on a Thursday, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. friends. Feels like I'm at the Masters with Jimmy Nance. What do we got here? This is like a lovely landscape.
Not quite.
Solo. What do we got?
Quite. This was you did the first concert thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is a I guess an ode to my father, some Tesla for you. It is actually, though. They're kind of like a corny 80s band, right? The hair metal stuff. But this intro, it's called Love Song, this one, is like one of my favorite guitar acoustic intros in music in general. It's fun.
Well, shout out to your pops who left you far too soon. So whenever you want to pay homage to pops, feel free to do that. I've never heard of Tesla. Like, I thought your dad was more of like a grungy, like Nickelback. Because every time I make fun of Nickelback, it makes me feel bad because your dad liked that stuff.
Yeah, a little bit, but it was more of like he liked those bands because they were like trying to carry on what I think was the performance bands of the 80s, right? I don't know that they did it all that well, to be clear. But yeah, like AC/DC, Rat, Poison, these guys. That's really the MO. And then those bands disappeared. So I guess Three Doors Down and Nickelback had to do.
How old would Pops be today? Because it feels like he's close-ish to my age.
It would be 56?
A little bit older than I am. Well,
7?
10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, gone too soon. Always thinking of you in that direction. All right. Were you raised a SNL guy? Do you watch SNL? Do you watch Saturday Night Live? Do you have like historical context and reference for it?
So yes, but it's again kind of down the same story. It's all 80s, 90s. It's Chris Farley. It's the early Adam Sandler, Tina Fey, and Amy Poehler, like mid 90s when I was really, really little. And then once like the 2000s hit and it was all the new SNL cast members, we just started watching like the DVDs of the old ones. So I had like the Saturday Night Live best of Tina Fey, best of Chris Farley, best of Adam Sandler. And instead of watching most of the ones that have happened in the last 10 years, those are the ones that I am familiar with and watch now. Nowadays, Spence, it's more of like a digital, I catch up, I see the funny stuff it makes its way to the internet. But there's very rare a moment that I'm sitting down on a Saturday night watching Saturday Night Live. Those are usually reserved for football.
So if I asked you the best SNL cast member of all time, what's your instant reaction? I saw a poll going around, and the results of the poll were kind of surprising.
That's hard for me. I go to Chris Farley because of that, but I know his tenure was shorter lived in that regard. That really is a tough one for me. I would have to go Farley because that is my entire SNL really knowledge. But there's been some really funny ones and some folks that even to this day are really, really consistent. And the cool part with SNL is it's all over, right? So there's folks who can do impressions, they can sing, they can do the improv stuff. Really talented crew, and I'd have to narrow it down to Chris Farley, but I know that's very old.
Chris Farley is the answer. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Chris Farley is the answer to the question. Let's be very clear. The poll I saw going around, Bill Hader was voted as the best SNL. And look, Bill Hader's very funny. He's very talented. But I don't think he'd be in my top 5. I put Will Ferrell in there. Phil Hartman, underrated. Rest in peace. I'd have to think about my top 5, but I like Bill Hader. I don't think he'd make my top 5, and he won this poll that was going around on social media.
I think he has to be in the top 5 if you're just talking about Saturday Night Live, because from what I understand, he is such a big part of that show beyond just being part of the skits. Apparently, Bill Hader is like the guy when it comes to doing it live on Saturday night. A lot of the funny stuff you see from the other cast members is an idea or a writing, a script of Bill Hader. And then obviously he comes on and is really good with impressions, really good with some of the other stuff. He's one of the ones that I was talking about where I don't personally relate to him much, but if you watch SNL, and you have for the last 20 years, you don't really escape that guy.
All right, before we say goodnight, at the risk of sounding like the old man sitting on his couch yelling at the TV, Bob Costas is a legend. Bob Costas has done everything in our business. Like, you name it, he's done it. Olympics, NBA Finals. Like, you could go down the list.
Mm-hmm.
He's had his own show on HBO multiple times. He is atrocious on the baseball call. I was watching the Yankee game last night. Go Yanks. What up, Coach Witt? My guy. Me and Coach Witt, football guys meet, Yankee baseball. And there was no emotion. Like, Giancarlo Stanton gets the, go ahead, 8th inning jack, nothing. He sounded like an old man watching television describing what he was seeing. Like, it is way worse than I thought it was going to be.
It was noticeable too, right? And we're broadcasters, so there's this kind of weird wall. We're not supposed to go at other broadcasters. We're not supposed to.
Energy,
but it's very noticeable when it's on the screen. I don't like to nitpick a play-by-play guy or a color guy while they're on air, unless they're like one of my pet peeves, Spence, and hits home here in Utah. If you can't pronounce the names, or don't try, or don't study before the week of the game, that is something where I will get on air or tweet about. And then, yeah, man, once you run out of energy for the gig you're doing, maybe it's time to find something else to do. But on the other side, Spence, they're still paying him to do it. So from my perspective, it would be on the executives to say, hey, there's no energy in this broadcast. Maybe examine why that is going on. For a guy Costas, he's just cash checks, doing his job. But I agree with you. You're supposed to be setting the scene. You're supposed to be giving the energy of the venue and the event. That's not happening on postseason baseball.
Man, not at all. Brock Purdy has twice as many turnovers as Daniel Jones. Justin Fields has more touchdown passes than Brock Purdy. Thursday Night Football is actually a big game for the Niners. They're 2-3, typically not a big game this early on in the season, but you're going to hear that coming up next. Now, tomorrow we have a short show because at 4:30 we start our Utah football pregame coverage with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we got coming up? How do we get our listeners' weekend started out the right way?
Yeah, on a Friday edition of The Drive, we'll start it off with Max Brown, talking some quarterback, talking some Cam Rising, potential and reported return of one Cam Rising. So Max will start off the program. We'll have a big hour. Gordon Monson, Craig Bolerjack, they'll both be here in studio talking Utes, talking Big 12, talking Utah hockey, talking Jazz, wherever you want to go with those fellas. And then, as you mentioned, a shorter show. So we'll finish things off with our friend Robert Rojo Johnson, the former Ute and NFL safety. And then around 4:15, 4:30, Jordan Wynn and I will take the baton from you. Maybe you can stick around a minute as well.
Nah, I'm going to go play golf.
Really?
If you need me, I'm here for you.
The offer's there. If you want to preview some, we'll do a little overlap maybe.
Okay, fair enough. If you missed it about 3 hours ago, Brett McMurphy from the Action Network is reporting that tomorrow night, under center for your Utah Utes, is number 7, Cameron Rising. So should be excited. Excited for the game tomorrow. All right, we'll say goodnight. Special thank you today to Andrea Urban, as well as Chris Camerani, Paul Pugmire, and Richard Smith. For any of the sound that you may have missed from the show today, head over to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. It's how I listen to our station, get Ute games, get all of our shows. It's the ESPN 700 app, and that's available in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do, in our space for 4 hours every afternoon, check out our podcast page. It's available wherever you get your shows. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Subscribe, rate, review. All the things we ask you to do actually help. If you have time to do it, all the stars say nice things in the comments. We'd appreciate it. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Thursday Night Football, Seahawks, 49ers, live in Lumen. Comes your way coming up next, right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.